click record, and this should let you know what's happening. And then I lost my bar here. Okay, so welcome again, everybody. My name is Daniel Acuna, and I'm with my partner in crime, Stephen David. I'm in the computer science department, University of Colorado. I don't know, Stephen, if you want to say, introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everybody, and looking forward to getting to know you a little bit over the next couple weeks. I'm Stephen David. I'm in the Department of Otolaryngology, or ear, nose, and throat at Oregon Health and Science University.
Great. So, the most important thing about the summer school is not us, and it's not our student running the summer school. It's you, and the experience that you will have. Well, in the lectures, but most importantly, with the group that you're going to form, hopefully, and the project that you're going to work on, and the mentorship sessions that are going to happen next week. That's the thing that people really take away from the summer school. And then I'll make a couple of announcements. But one of the announcements that we're excited about is that we'll have micro grants this year to $1,000. It's not a lot, but I think it helps a lot in starting ideas, in getting the ball running for your project. And I'll announce some details later. Okay, so I guess I need to zoom out. So first, we would like to acknowledge the support from NSF to run the summer school. This is a project that we have with Stephen to study a mentorship, and she will talk about that later in the summer school, about his project, about this system that he runs. And we recently, well, the paper is still in press, but it should come out this week, where we created this data set of mentorship relationships in science, of course, PhD mentorship, and postdoctoral mentorship, and link that to publications. And that paper is it's all open, and all the code to run all the analysis is open, and they link it to other data sets also. Well, I'm no longer in the School of Information Studies, sadly, but this summer school is hosted by that school at Syracuse University, and they've been very helpful in supporting us throughout these years running this program. And I want to acknowledge also the help from students, Lijian, Han, and Laroyce. He will join later this week, or maybe today. I think Lijian is presenting something. All right, so I don't know what happened here, but I guess I have two slides in one. So the motivation for this summer school are that there are many. Well, I guess there are not many events, but there are already events about science of science. And I don't know if you had the opportunity, but there was a conference in June, at the beginning of June. I think it's called International Conference on Science of Science and Innovation. It happened in Washington, D.C., and many of the prominent people in the area were there. It was more of policy, I would say. Policy oriented, but more generally, because we consider science of science to be embedded in computational social science mostly. Most of the computational social science summer schools are not focused on science of science. We wanted to run this in person, of course, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I forgot. But of course, COVID happened, but the most important thing is that it would be great to show new people entering into this field, which is relatively new in the sense that the ways that we are running analysis in science of science recently use a lot of data and a lot of analysis. Science of science in the past didn't necessarily do that. Now, I want to immediately encourage everybody to use the chat if you have questions, if you want to interact. I mean, we love it when you interact through the chat. It doesn't bother me that you are having your own little conversations. That's great. So, because again, the interaction among participants is one of the most important things. Okay, so and the other goal of this summer school is to show, like once you start publishing and when you start being part of a field, like the stuff that is coming out in journals and conferences, like in the proceedings, are things that were discussed sometimes many years ago or decades ago. So you don't really get to see the latest questions being discussed most of the time. So this summer school is a way for you to interact with the mentors so that you get to see what are the kind of what is the underbelly of science. What are the things that people don't publish but are wondering about and are studying and are having troubles, like to discuss the things that perhaps we are missing just from reading publications. Okay, so in the application that you submitted to the summer school, you filled out which program you're in, which department, and your interests. So we did a little word cloud of where you're coming from, and most of you are coming from information science, information schools, sociology, and business schools. And most of you are interested in, well, you're doing research, most of you, but some of you are doing a master's perhaps, or thinking about doing a PhD, and most of you are expected to learn about science and research, which is great. So we accepted a smaller number of students compared to last year. We had over 200 applications. But I think our experience is that it's better that you interact more closely with us and with mentors than to have a bigger cohort. And, you know, there is a long tail of sometimes students that, you know, don't interact as much. So I think we selected a very well-balanced cohort of expertise, of career stages, and other demographic factors and distributions across the world. We have people from, I think, 12 time zones, so that's interesting. And my computer froze. Okay, good. Okay, yes. Okay, so I don't know if, I hope that the Zoom understands what I'm saying. Okay, great. It is understanding. So we have a good mix of students. And again, the school is as good as you make it to be. So interact as much as possible, ask questions as much as possible. And there are no wrong questions here. We're all curious. We don't know everything. And again, there is a wide range of backgrounds and knowledge. Some students might not know programming or data analysis, but might be from, let's say, library science and know methods and things like that, and or be interested in questions. And we have, of course, the other end of the spectrum, with people who are very technical, but perhaps don't know they're trying to understand the field. All right, some rules. We're all here to learn. We all need to be respectful of each other. There are no, again, wrong questions. You should just ask them away and, you know, discuss. And if we don't understand something, you know, discuss among yourself. We don't want to in any way filter your ideas, not because I'm in a certain department or I work in certain questions, I'm gonna limit what you want to study. But we have some basic rules of conduct for the summer school, and this applies not just to the interactions here on Zoom, but also to the interactions that will happen on the Slack workspace. We will record the lectures again, as I said, and some of the discussions, perhaps the last day of the school, which I will explain, we will not record because those might be ideas that you don't want to, you know, broadcast to the world. We will record questions and answer sessions, and but we won't record the breakout rooms. So the mentoring sessions, of course, we won't record. So please use your camera and microphone, but of course, you're welcome to use the chat functionality as well. Okay, so you should have received, and maybe this is a good time to see if your buttons work on Slack. I'm not on Slack, sorry, on Zoom. So you should have received an invitation to join the Science of Science Summer School Slack workspace. So if you are in there and you're able to see things, I will send a message to the random channel. Okay, that's one interaction that will happen. And the other is, if you are in there, please use your thumbs up in Zoom, so that at least I know that people are listening to what I'm saying. So use your thumbs up if you are inside Slack. Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, thank you. So in Slack, if you have not used it before, we have channels where you can post messages, but some of the channels you cannot post. It's restricted to only us. So that usually, I think, is the announcement channel. So we'll be making announcements about maybe perhaps changes in schedule or last minute fixes to some of the issues, technical issues. So, but you can reply to those messages. So now today, as I was saying, in the summer school, we'll try to discuss projects, and today we'll have a session in the afternoon. And again, I'm not even in the East Coast anymore, but in the afternoon in the East Coast, we'll discuss projects, and we hope to brainstorm with you. So you will have, hopefully today, a lot of ideas about what you want to do, or maybe in the next couple of days. And if you want to collaborate with someone, we encourage you to post those ideas into the Ideas for Projects channel in the Slack. If you have technical difficulties, we have a help desk channel. And we had a question anymore. Oh, someone posted my tweets, which is great. All right. Okay. So any questions so far? Please ask away. Don't be, use the chat, raise your hand. So Stephen, go ahead.
Sorry, remembering how to unmute yourself. So just question, did you say if people are having trouble connecting to Slack, did you have is there something they should do to someone they should contact?
Yes, good question. So if you have trouble, I think Legion was managing that. If Legion, if you're here, I think you can post a message on Zoom saying, contact me, email Legion, and he should be able to invite you. Or you can email me, and I can invite you to the Science of Science workspace. So Legion, you can post. So the student who is managing the connection to, I guess I imposed that he will manage the connection to Slack. That's his name. All right. So any other question from the audience? I'm very patient. Just unmute yourself and ask questions or raise your hand.
You're too clear, Daniel. Everyone
I'm extremely clear. I'm very happy about it. Okay, so the objectives of the summer school, I'll go over them, and there are many ways that interaction will happen. So this week we'll have lectures, but what I'm very excited about is that we'll have visitors from last year's cohort. So last year there were some groups who, just like you, were in the summer school and interacted among themselves and discuss a project throughout the first week, propose a project, presented something by the end of the second week, and then submitted a grant, a micro grant proposal, and we funded that. So this week we'll have a couple of those groups present what they did with the research support. And sometimes it was just, they got started in questions. Maybe they realized that some of the questions were not, good, and they changed. Or maybe some of them, I don't know, actually, some of them got to maybe do something and publish. So we'll see. But this week is mostly about lectures and introducing a system that we built for you to use. So we will be using a certain environment, but of course, again, you're not forced to use this environment, but we put together kind of the software packages that we'll be using, and also some of the sample data sets that you can use for your project. Now, the second week will be kind of like a conference setup where you will have presentations from the mentors, panel discussions, and then you will have the mentoring sessions in the afternoon. I will, well, the details of the microgrants we already have, so I'll share that maybe on Slack. I already shared it on Slack, I think, in the announcement channel, how to apply to that. All right, so to stay up to date onto what's happening with the schedule and last minute changes, always go to this URL, s4.scienceofscience.org/schedule. That should show the latest updates. All right, so the first week we will discuss many different topics, but mainly we'll try to, it's mostly about methods. Okay, so it's not too much about questions. We'll discuss maybe how these methods apply to some questions. And we hope the second week to be more about the questions themselves. So it's kind of a little bit backwards, if you will. Like, it's like ideally you should start with, okay, what's your question? And then you look for methods that help you solve those questions. But we wanted the second week where you're working and maybe having your all your ideas after discussing with mentors be so that you can apply the methods that you learned in the first week, or see if some of the methods will work and you want to investigate them further. So we'll review today just the basics of the environment that we set up for you, the data sets that are available. Then tomorrow, some introduction to machine learning, artificial intelligence, statistics. Of course, this is like a big dream. There is no way we can introduce this. So a lot of these presentations will have pointers to further reading that you can do. On Wednesday, we'll have the network science session, then deep learning, and by the end of the week, causal inference. And as you can see, each day we'll have a presentation by groups from last year. Now, the second week, on my window here, we'll have the presentations. So we try to have, so it's the first 4 days, because the last day is going to be for presentations. But each day we hope we'll have 3 mentors, and they're going to present their research, participate in a panel later, and then do the mentoring sessions. Now, the first day of next week, you have an amazing panel of, I think I'm missing someone, and I apologize. So maybe this is a good time to use the schedule, to use my own advice. So if you go to schedule and go to, let's see here. Okay, so I miss, I'm sorry, Chao Kyun Ni. So we have an amazing panel discussion on the first day next week. Not just about their own research of these amazing researchers, but also deeper discussions about the role of gender and race and other factors, socioeconomical factors in science as it's studied from Science of Science. But the rest of the days, the panels are going to be the mentors that are presenting that day. All right, so usually the structure of the first week is that the first hour or 2 hours is going to be just some introduction to whatever topic we're presenting that day, then some more deep dive into, some specific methods or data sets or maybe research, and then we'll have a break and then group activities. Now, a change from what happened last year. So last year we tried to do group activities and kind of suggest that everybody attends the evening, so the afternoon, but that didn't work too well. We tried to do multiple time zones, but also that's of course that didn't work too well because, well, as you can see, in some parts of the world, having group activities are in the middle of the night is not a good idea. So so today is the only day that we will do group activity or interactions with us in the afternoon. And by that, I mean like at 1, well, I can go to schedule and show it today. So today at from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. and later, maybe I'll stay around a little bit. We'll discuss like maybe how to think about projects for the summer school, and maybe discuss with you if you have questions, projects that you would like to work on. So today is the only day of the first week where we'll have this. We will be available. Well, we're encourage you to attend and all of us be together in the afternoon. I know, and we know that this might not work all days because this time is not ideal for some parts of the world. So please make an effort for attending this session today in the afternoon to discuss the projects. I don't know if I'm missing, and Stephen, please jump in if I'm missing something. But I think that's the plan for this week.
That was a question. So I guess in light of this, I just got a message asking about this. If for students who are in odd time zones, how will they be able to participate in group discussions later in the week? Or is there?
Yeah. So the idea is that today, the ideal scenario is that today they will form a group or they will post questions in the ideas for projects, and of course, it will be best if the time zones are aligned among them. So that's what happens. So last year, for example, we have, students that were in Hawaii, they got together and they were able to work on project, but sometimes they collaborate with the people that were in India, for example. Or we have groups of students from China and that got together and work on projects. So ideally, you want to work with people that are in similar time zones, but sometimes it wasn't possible, and they were still able to pull off some projects. And we'll be available if you have questions about anything. We'll be available on Slack, and I believe we can open. Yeah, I think that's what we did last year. We'll leave, and maybe I will confirm this with Han or Lijen. We'll leave this channel, this Zoom, open for people to participate in the evening or at night even, so that they can connect to the same place.
Right, and if I'm remembering correctly from last year, we had a number of breakout rooms that were available for people to join. So if you came online at any hour, you could just drop in to pick a breakout room to work with your group. And so there's always a space that you can use whenever is convenient for you.
Exactly. Okay, so any questions from the audience about the first week? All right. So second week, this is a little bit more structure. So we'll have presentations in the morning, in the Eastern time anyways, and then the panel discussions, then we'll have a break, and then we'll have the mentoring sessions. in the afternoon. Yeah, for some of you, it won't be an ideal time, but again, this is the reason why you want to join summer school. It's just sometimes you will have a one-on-one meeting with someone who you really want to discuss your research ideas, or group meetings with someone who maybe the group that you are working with to meet with someone. So well, I guess I'll talk about one. So there is one mentor who made an amazing offer. He's an editor in Nature. He said that he's open to review your writing and give you feedback. And like an editor is someone who sees ideas, like many ideas, dozens of ideas per week, and knows what it works, what it doesn't work, or maybe for different journal profiles. So Arunas, he offered to do this, and I will give more details later, and that will be the first Monday and Tuesday next week. He will be mentoring. So that's but of course you can talk about anything you want with him. Will we know who our mentors are in advance? Yes, of course. So we submitted I think I have a slide about that. Excellent. So I have a slide. So we submitted a survey last week or 2 weeks ago, asking you to sign up for a check-in session and also your ranking of mentors. So you should have received that, and hopefully you submitted that. So there you provide, okay, I want to meet, I really want to meet Dan Larimore or Bayu, and that's your first rank, and you have to rank everybody. So we'll take that rank and try to really give you, time with your first priority. And then we'll give you times with the other ranks. So we try to kind of maximize the chances that everybody sees their highest possible rank through that process. And we should be sharing that by the end of this week. Now, the reason we're doing that is because we will be looking at who was available to do in the first week. And I know this sucks, and we hate, monitoring and policing people. But if we see that, someone never connected or it's not available, or didn't participate in any group session and didn't submit any project, usually it's not a priority for the mentoring session. So we want to give the mentoring session access to the students who are participating in the first week. So we will share that, Sarah, by the end of this week. Okay. So yeah, so we'll have the mentoring sessions we did last year, 15 minutes blocks. So we'll have 2 hours. So that's a pretty good eight mentoring sessions for each mentor. So and because again, 33 students, we try to reduce it, but it will mean that for some of you will have to meet in groups with your mentors. Also, what happened last year, we invited the mentors, and some of the mentors from last year might be on Slack still. So I don't know, I haven't seen them, but they are there, and you can ask them questions. So so we'll invite them to Slack, and some of them follow up in some discussion through a Slack. Yeah, so each day we will assign students to the same group of, so each day of the first week we'll assign students. Let's say we have a group activity, we'll assign students into the same pod, breakout sessions. And the idea is that each day you get to interact with this with the same group of students through these interaction sessions. So today, try to interact with as many people as possible. And now, so So the idea, it's how it worked last year, is that people discuss ideas today with us or among yourselves, and then they got together maybe tomorrow morning and said, you know, let's I'm going to submit this idea, let's work together. Thursday midnight, and they submit a project proposal and say it's a very simple proposal. It's a one-page proposal that you want to work on for the rest of the summer school. On your own time, you work on it, and then you present this by the end of next week. And this is not August 6th, this is from last year. So this should be, and this is the power of this system, this will be August 12th. So that's how this would work. So we'll also have microgrants. Unfortunately, due to limitations of the fund, well, I don't want to blame the funder, but limitations that maybe self-imposed and things that are easier, we will give microgrants to groups. And if you are someone who is affiliated with a US-based institution, it will be easier. I will maybe consult. So let me write that down. You know, can we give this to people? So maybe there is a way around this, but we're sorry, okay, that this is happening this way. So we'll have $8,000 to $10,000 grants. And this is, you know, small amount of money, but I think it's a good way for you to get started on a project. Okay, any questions? Please ask questions.
Just about the microgrants, Daniel. I guess there were some projects last year where the groups were international, but as long as one of the applicants was a U.S. resident, that was possible.
Yeah, one of the applicants it's affiliated. It doesn't even need to be resident or anything. It can be an international student, but as long as they are affiliated with a U.S. institution, it will work. There are no limits. Well, it should be related to research, of course, but as long as I know, they can pay for equipment, for you say compute, for traveling, for publication costs, for anything that is reasonable. And just to give you a sense of what's, you know, sometimes students, well, you get together with your group and you say, okay, let's go to a bar to discuss this, and that you know, funding beer probably wouldn't be reasonable with NSF, sadly. But in the announcement, I share the microgrant terms in the announcement on Slack, and you can read more details. So the deadline is for the microgrant is the end of August, so you have plenty of time to maybe work out the details. You can of course send it at any time before, and we'll try to announce it very quickly so that we can give you a full academic year. So by the end of next summer in 2023, well, summer here, I guess, by the end of August of next year, you will have, you know, done something with the funding. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna give you like a very quick introduction to Science of Science, and I'm gonna do it in a. Now this is my. It's just, you know, it's what I perceive as a very obvious way of describing Science of Science, and that is the idea is that it's a subfield of computational social science. So you can say that Science of Science is, well, science is primarily a social science as well as it's a social process where you have scientists, institutions interacting, but the main drivers, at least over the last couple of 100 years, have been people driving the process. So computational social science is this way of, okay, we're gonna use tools from social science to analyze science itself through computational processes. But the roots can be traced back to many subfields that have studied ideas regarding science. So philosophy of science, philosophy of knowledge, meta-knowledge, meta-science. There are many different names. Of course, there is a book, the Xun Wang and Laszlo Barabasi. They published a book on science of science. I think it's freely available. So and it gives an overview of the field. But of course, you should also read the criticism that was written. I believe it was in Science or Nature about the book, about maybe some of the things that is missing. Of course, every time you have a field that is, as exciting as this field, you will have discussions about, you missed this, you missed that, you should have included this method. So there is a lot of passion about this, which is good. It's a good sign for a field. It just shows that it's a vibrant field. There are many other fields that are related to science of science, or some people say there are science of science. So why do we create a new term? I won't get into the politics of that, but you have scientometrics. There is a journal called Scientometrics, Biometrics, Science and Technology Studies. Of course, you have the journal Quantitative Studies of Science, that is very related to the Journal of Informatics. So informatics could be another field that you can think of as being science of science. But to me, and this is very personal, just science of science is just using the scientific method to study science. Okay, so here's a little cheat sheet of what the scientific method looks like. So you have, you can start from any of these steps. This is very simplified, of course, but if you have a question about how peer review works or how mentorship works, well, you can start with hypothesis, and then you get data to test that experiment or gather data, or maybe run an experiment. You analyze it, you report your conclusions, you submit to PLOS ONE or Nature or, well, any of these journals, Journal of Informatics, and you report your results. So you study science and all aspects of science with the scientific method itself. So what's cool is that science of science, I guess the latest versions of what's or the things that the people, I guess, I don't know what to say, but basically the resurgence of science, I guess, with new methods and techniques is due to the availability of data sets. And that's, again, a personal opinion, but that just gives, similar to what's happening in artificial intelligence, where, now we have these systems that can, chat with you and analyze images. Well, most of the reason why that's happening is because we have availability of data sets. So the same thing happened with science. We have a lot of data sets and a lot of information about how science happens. So, and we have also a lot of diversity about data sets about science. So we maybe perhaps 10, 15 years ago, most of the things that we could get was just, publications and citations. But these days you can get access to almost anything: grants, policy documents, full text, images. Now you could argue that that's also missing things that are super important for science, like how interactions work, the questions, things like that. So of course we shouldn't just use data to drive our questions, but to me at least, there are just so many interesting questions so many interesting questions about how science works, and we've been answering those questions based on social processes that we don't necessarily understand or have studied, that you pick any of those questions and you can, maybe there is a data set available. So just to give you an example, with Stephen, we studied mentorship a couple of years ago. Maybe mentorship networks were not available, 30 years ago, but now we have that available. So we were able to link mentorship, postdoctoral mentors, PhD mentors with the mentees, and then analyze the content of the publications and see how much they differ in that over time. So things like that were not able to be discussed in the past. So there is a question, thank you, May June. What is the difference between sociology of science, economics of science, and science of science? If we use econometrics methods, is it considered science of science or economics of science? Well, I would say, great question. I think it's good to separate methods sometimes, like they're very tied to certain fields, but it's good to think about, I think in my opinion, Stephen, please step in to correct me, but in my opinion, it's good to have a question first, start from that, and then let that drive your methods. So you think about the stuff that, that Shun does, and there is like a strong network science component, a physics component, and they use certain methods. But I think we should all be open to use any kind of method. So I use, for example, AI or machine learning because I want to kind of predict some things. So I have my own bias on that front. So, for example, econometrics methods, they are used, I think, for example, Aaron Closet, they use econometrics matching and causal inference to analyze sociological factors in science of science. And I consider that science of science rather than economics of science.
Yeah, and I think it's a very good question, right? But and I think it kind of highlights the complexity of the challenge, right? So I come from my day job is in the world of neuroscience, which, in a sense, also brings in experts from physics and math and biology and chemistry and even economics these days, right? So I think when you have a multidisciplinary field, it actually probably grew out of a number of different fields that all are interested in the same question, right? And yeah, so I think the idea that the tools you're using to study probably define your field with these different labels. But it's interesting. I look at these labels and they all kind of mean the same thing to me, but maybe I'm integrating too much.
Yeah, and I think one of the most interesting things about this field that, Stephen his day job is studying brains and doing neuroscience and complex studies with actual subject. I don't know if they're participants, but subjects, right?
Real squishy neurons, yeah.
Yeah, and many of the people that you see that study science of science, many of them have like other kinds of jobs. So only recently you have people that got jobs in academia. I don't know if in industry, but that do science of science full time. I'm lucky to say that perhaps I can do that. I can afford to study science of science full time. So and the funders are paying attention. So NSF, of course, has the Science of Science program. I think that's what's called. It's a small program, but still it funds Science of Science. All right, great question. Thank you. All right, so examples of data sets available. Now, these are kind of a little old, but in the sense that this data set is no longer available. That Microsoft, and well, they're still available somewhere. We'll still have access in our cluster, so they must be somewhere available. Microsoft, they had a team for some years where they crawled the web and they created a data set of publications, authors, institutions, citations, and they had over 300 million publications and 400 million authors. But what's cool about this is that unfortunately, they went out of, I don't know if out of business, but perhaps Microsoft didn't feel that it was there was a need to do this. This just shows one of the struggles of doing science of science. Who gets the data? Who produces the data? So this data set was openly available. It was great. You saw many publications come out of this data set, but it's not no longer available. However, there is a new data set called OpenAlex, and I'm very excited to say that Li-Jen will talk about it today. So it comes from Open Alexandria, like the Alexandria library, or the Library of Alexandria, and it's similar in spirit to what Microsoft was doing, but this is completely open. They're the same people that did, I forget the name, but it's called Our Research. So they do many tools that are open. All their methods are open. So it's great development for science of science, and it should replicate and augment what Microsoft did. But Li-Jen will talk more about that. So another data set that we have is Semantic Scholar. You can also access it if you go to the website. This website is run by Allen AI, the Allen Institute for Artificial Intelligence in Washington State, in Seattle. And they're doing great work with a search engine. You probably have used it, Semantic Scholar. But what's interesting is that they have, a good amount of funding, and they have an excellent technical team that runs not just this data set, but they usually create methods and publish in scientific. They publish methods about science to parse documents, to parse citation graphs, and all kinds of interesting methods and techniques for science, which we can use in science of science. So PubMed Open Access Subset is another data set that is available. It is a full text. I use it in my own research. It's great if you want to understand, let's say, how people cite, like what are the texts surrounding surrounding a citation, what are the captions that people are using to describe figures. Those are all fully available. Now, Further Exporter, I believe, let me just live check this. I think they move out. Yeah, they move out to US spending, and this website has all the funding of science for the US. Unfortunately, we're doing this a little bit, perhaps too focused on the US, but it has more than 14 funding agencies where you can download and analyze, and they have the information about who got funded, how much, the project abstract, and things like publications that came out of the project. We also have Crossref, and they make the data available through an API. You can download it, but you have to pay a fee. But I think the fee is relatively small. But I think if you give your email, you can download the data or like scroll to it or use the API to download the data. They're just asking you to be nice. Oh, okay, good to know. Thank you, Matthew. So USA spending is not as it's a little shallower than the Fair Exporter. Now, there are companies, let me mention that there are companies that are running this, and I don't want to advertise any company, but we're using a data set from Dimensions, and they have a disambiguated set of publications and grants that are then linked. And I think the link quality is relatively good. You have Scopus, you have Web of Science. They have APIs, but I think Dimensions is the only one that makes the entire data set available to you, and you can analyze it on your own. Well, you can analyze it through the API, but basically you have, like, I guess, a little bit more flexibility. So there are companies that are trying to make this work for profit, and Dimensions is one of them, and they're part of. I think they can't. Yeah, I forget the company, but that's the system that they call for grants and publication linking. Now, I was saying that you should use your questions to drive the methods and the data you seek, but generally, like there are data sets, for example, that were never available, and once you see them, you start having questions. So sometimes you have data, and that drives your questions. So, so that's of course totally okay. But I would say that typically studies from the past in science, like and someone already mentioned these fields, is that thank you. So is that that usually to study in these fields, and I mentioned this just as an example of fields that have been working on this area for a long time, but the data sets that they have, all the data sets that they have used traditionally are very easy to process quantitatively. So you have like say numbers and citations and funding and things like that, and it's relatively easy to run statistical analysis. But what's interesting is that with these new data sets, you can extract information that was or extract quantitative information from text, from images, and you can make sense of them if you have a question from the science of science perspective. I think that's just opening massive new opportunities in science of science. So, so in this week, we'll try to introduce some of these techniques to extract quantitative information from this unstructured data, and we'll use computer vision on Thursday. Natural language processing, I think, is also on Thursday. Tomorrow, we'll try to introduce some machine learning. And these are just methods. Let's say if you're interested in understanding text, digital science. Thank you, Sylvia. Yeah, that's the company that I forgot. That's Digital Science runs Dimensions. So, so we'll try to introduce this week methods that allow you to extract information from data that perhaps is not easily, quantifiable. So text again, and topics, images, etc. So, but you have other data sets, of course, where you don't need these methods necessarily, like citation networks. That's already available, and you can analyze that relatively easier than these techniques. So, and this is just expanding the kinds of questions that we can ask. So these are some of the things that what happens if we ignore some of the unstructured data in science. Okay, so I'm just kind of skipping through these. All right, so there are many. This is just exploding every day. You see new data sets about science, and you can use that. So some, I don't know if tomorrow or this week, later this week, there is someone, for example, that is analyzing retractions in science. So they use a new data set on retractions run by Retraction Watch, and they took that and they analyzed, how what is the history, or how basically how retracted papers are cited, and who is citing them, and what's happening with those publications, why they are citing, things like that. All right. So I believe I should stop here, and we should get to know each other. What do you think, Stephen? I think that's the plan.
Yeah. We're on schedule.
So So let's see. Yes. Okay. So first, do you have any questions? So I will explain later what this is, what I'm showing you here. And so maybe some of you already know, but this is part of a system that we set up for you. It's available in this URL. I'll explain that more later. But in this environment, you can run analysis. We have data sets available for you, etc. But we'll explain that later. But now I think it will be a good time to get to know each other. And the way that we'll do this is so I guess I can say, what about I'm going to post on Zoom what I want each of us to do. Okay, so we are going to go around the room, the virtual room, and I'm going to stop sharing. And you're going to say, introduce yourself briefly. So name, affiliation, short description of your interest. That's one thing. Let's see if I create multiple lines. Is that possible? Okay, it's not possible. But then you should like say something interesting, funny, that we can all remember you for about yourself. Okay, so I'm going to remove the pin here, here. Okay, great. So I see many faces. So turn on your camera, please, if you so that we can see each other's faces. So first, I would like to
real life people. That's nice.
Real life, yeah. We are all real life. We move and we are having fun. So where is so I see Han and Lijen. Okay, great. So I suggest that we start first, Stephen and Han and Lijen. And just to give a sense of that, and then we can go around the room and ask questions. Can we also have a photo? Yeah, I guess if you can have a photo if you want to. Yeah. Okay, so I'll start, obviously. So hello, everybody. My name is Daniel Acuna. I also go by Daniel Acuna. If you want to say it like that, that would be great. I have 5 names. But I won't reveal them because it's just too long. I was in the School of Information Studies at Syracuse University, but I'm moving to the computer science department in lovely Colorado. That's where I'm in here in this fake library behind me. I don't want to show the messy room that I have. I'm moving. I drove 4 days from Syracuse, which is like 1,600 miles, like 3,000 kilometers away from this place. My background is computer science, and I try to use artificial intelligence and apply that to science in many ways. So sometimes I do just science, basic science, or sometimes I do science of science. And I usually try to do like predictive analytics. And I'm just excited about all these amazing data sets that are coming out. Something interesting and funny about me, man, I cannot think of anything, but I guess I drove, and you don't want to drive in Colorado with a truck because the roads suck. And I'm looking for students. So if you are interested in applying to Colorado Boulder, please feel free to send me an email. Thank you.
Okay, I guess I'm next. Hi, everyone. My name is Stephen David. I'm at Oregon Health and Science University. I kind of already gave you a few hints about who I am. I'm helping Daniel organize this. He's really the mastermind, though, so all complaints should be directed to that guy. But as I mentioned, I started off and still am a neuroscientist. So in my day job, I'm interested in understanding neurons and networks of neurons and how they communicate as a system, in my particular case, to understand auditory processing. But I've always had an interest in kind of how does this fit into the bigger the world of science and neuroscience and even fields outside of neuroscience, which neuroscience draws on. And so this awareness that maybe the ideas of understanding networks in the brain, which are very complicated and not really understood, those same kind of questions and ideas exist in the science of science. And so I kind of look at people and sort of think of